While recovering in a hospital bed from emergency surgery, a news broadcast showed my husband, parents, and sister sipping champagne on a luxury cruise. A quick check of my banking app revealed a $31,000 charge on my corporate card, stolen while I was under anesthesia. When I called my husband and he smoothly claimed he was trapped working late at his office, I whispered, "Enjoy yourself," and quietly decided to end our marriage by taking away everything they owned. My name is Maria Sharp. To understand how a quiet recovery room at Beacon Hill Medical Center in Boston, Massachusetts, became the operational center for the total legal and financial teardown of my family, you have to look at the covert greed that defined my marriage and my upbringing. In my family, success was never respected. It was viewed as a communal asset waiting to be plundered. I am a 33-year-old founder and chief executive officer of Vanguard Environmental Solutions, a specialized clean tech engineering firm based in downtown Boston. Through years of disciplined effort, 80-hour work weeks, and strategic investments, I built a highly profitable company that designs industrial water filtration systems for municipalities across the Northeast. Long before I met my husband, my earnings allowed me to purchase a historic 3-story brownstone townhouse in Boston's Back Bay neighborhood, entirely in my own name, free of any mortgages or secondary liens. 5 years ago, I married Marcus Sharp. Marcus was a smooth-talking, ambitious former commercial real estate broker whose career had completely collapsed after several failed speculative ventures. First, he presented himself as a driven, supportive partner. But over time, his true nature emerged. Marcus was chronically lazy, obsessed with social status, and increasingly reliant on my income to fund his taste for expensive tailoring, high-end cigars, and private club memberships. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor Sterling, along with my 24-year-old sister Vanessa, operated with the exact same parasitical mindset. Arthur was a retired financial planner who had squandered his pension on bad stock market plays, while Eleanor and Vanessa spent their days attending country club teas, browsing luxury boutiques along Newbury Street, and complaining about their lack of liquid capital. 'Cause I was the only high earner in the family, they viewed my business success as a shared family bank account. Over the years, I quietly paid off Arthur's back taxes, covered Vanessa's private college tuition debts, and funded lavish annual holidays, foolishly hoping that my financial generosity would earn the emotional warmth they had withheld from me throughout my youth. To them, my generosity was nothing more than a weakness to be exploited. When Marcus and I married, I insisted on signing a comprehensive, ironclad prenuptial agreement. Prepared by one of the top asset protection attorneys in New England, it kept my premarital brownstone townhouse, my founder's equity in Vanguard Environmental Solutions, and my corporate bank accounts completely separate from marital property. That prenuptial agreement would soon become the legal executioner's blade that severed my ties to them forever. The nightmare began on a rainy Tuesday evening in early October. I suffered a sudden, life-threatening perforation of my stomach lining caused by an undiagnosed ulcer, leading to severe abdominal pain and internal bleeding. I was rushed by emergency ambulance to Beacon Hill Medical Center, where surgeons performed immediate laparoscopic surgery to repair the tear. Due to blood loss and severe post-operative fever, I was placed in a high-dependency recovery unit, heavily medicated and kept under strict 24-hour monitoring. During those first 48 hours, I was weak, exhausted, and barely conscious. Marcus stayed by my hospital bed for less than an hour on the first night. He checked his watch repeatedly, adjusted his silk tie, and leaned over my bed with an exaggerated look of corporate stress. He claimed his firm had just landed a massive commercial contract in New York that required him to oversee an audit personally and work around the clock for the next few days. I was too sedated to question his motives. I simply nodded, swallowed my pain medication, and drifted back to sleep. Over the next 3 days, Marcus called me twice daily for brief 60-second check-ins, constantly complaining about sleeping on his office couch and surviving on cold coffee. My parents and sister didn't visit me once, sending a brief, cold text message about hosting a charity committee luncheon instead. Sitting alone in that sterile hospital room, surrounded by the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors and the hum of 4 pumps, a hollow sadness washed over me. I naively believed my family was simply self-absorbed. I had no idea that while I was fighting an infection in a hospital gown, they were executing a calculated grand theft. truth exploded into my reality on Friday afternoon, day 4 of my hospital stay. I turned on the local afternoon news broadcast. The segment was covering a high-profile lifestyle story, the maiden voyage of the Atlantic Sapphire, an ultra-exclusive ocean liner departing from the port of Boston for a VIP cruise along the North Atlantic coast toward Halifax and Bermuda. The news anchor praised the vessel's luxurious amenities as the camera panned across the sun-drenched upper deck. Then, the camera zoomed in on the ship's private upper-deck VIP cabana. My breath caught in my throat. Sitting around a teak dining table draped in white linen were 4 people drinking vintage champagne and eating caviar. My husband, Marcus, wearing a tailored suit, my sister, Vanessa, with a brand-new designer leather bag, and my parents, Arthur and Eleanor, raising crystal flutes to the camera with triumphant smiles. With trembling fingers, I reached for my smartphone and opened my mobile corporate banking application for Vanguard Environmental Solutions. Stamped at the top of the pending business ledger from 3 days prior was a massive charge. October 12th, Atlantic Sapphire Cruises VIP package, $31,500. Marcus had gone into my private home study while I was being loaded into the ambulance, opened my hidden wall safe using the backup key he had stolen from my jewelry box, taken my corporate black card, and booked a $31,000 luxury vacation for himself, my parents, and my sister. They had planned this entire trip behind my back, taking advantage of my emergency hospitalization while I was under general anesthesia. Cold, terrifying wave of rage replaced my physical pain. I decided to test him one last time to leave zero room for doubt, dialing Marcus's cell phone number. On the live television broadcast, I watched Marcus pull his phone from his jacket pocket, motion for my family to be quiet, and step toward the ship's railing to answer. "Hey, Maria babe." Marcus's voice came smooth and cheerful through the speaker. Just taking a quick 5-minute breathing break from my desk. Still buried under spreadsheets downtown. "I wish I could be at the hospital holding your hand." I stared at his tiny figure on the television screen as he leaned against the cruise ship railing, signaling a passing waiter for another drink. "I see," I whispered, my voice perfectly calm. "Well, enjoy yourself, Marcus." I hung up, a slow, ice-cold smile spreading across my face. I was done shedding tears. I was done being used as an automated bank account for ungrateful parasites. I made up my mind to end our marriage completely, ruthlessly, and legally by stripping them of everything they owned. From my hospital bed, I spent the next 3 hours making 3 strategic phone calls. First, I called my senior commercial relationship manager at First New England Commerce Bank, Mr. Callahan, reporting grand identity theft and corporate conversion. I immediately transmitted certified hospital admission records, surgical logs, and physician statements confirming I was under anesthesia when the charge occurred. Under federal commercial regulations, the bank flagged felony fraud, executed an emergency corporate chargeback against Atlantic Sapphire Cruises, reversed the $31,500 payment, froze all associated cards, and referred the case to financial crimes investigators. Second, I called my lead asset protection attorney, Claire Montgomery. She immediately drafted a divorce petition under our prenuptial agreement's fault and fraud clause, securing an emergency judicial order for exclusive possession of my Back Bay townhouse. Third, I instructed a licensed private security agency to dispatch guards to my brownstone, rekey every lock, recode the electronic gates, and secure the perimeter. 48 hours later, off the coast of Halifax, Nova Scotia, the financial trap snapped shut. When the bank executed the corporate chargeback, the cruise line's automated system flagged Marcus's reservation as unpaid fraud. The ship's chief security officer and purser marched directly to the VIP cabana, handing Marcus an urgent notice of cancellation and demanding an immediate settlement of $31,500 plus $4,000 in onboard incidentals. Panicking, Marcus swiped his personal credit cards, declined. My father, Arthur, tried his personal card, declined. None of them possessed the credit limit or liquid funds to cover $35,000. Pursuant to maritime commercial policy, ship security revoked their VIP privileges, packed their luggage, and escorted all 4 of them off the ship at the Halifax terminal. Stripped of luxury and penniless, they scraped together their remaining personal cash to purchase 4 economy-class seats on a budget airline back to Boston. On Tuesday morning, I was officially discharged from Beacon Hill Medical Center. Wearing a sharp navy blazer over a silk blouse, my surgical bandage neatly covered, I sat comfortably in the living room of my Back Bay townhouse, sipping hot tea beside my attorney, Claire Montgomery, process servers, and 2 Boston police officers. 2 o'clock that afternoon, a battered airport taxi pulled up outside the security gates. Marcus, Arthur, Eleanor, and Vanessa stepped out, looking disheveled, sunburnt, exhausted, and furious. They dragged their heavy suitcases up the stone driveway, expecting to walk in and demand that I fix their financial disaster. Marcus shoved his house key into the lock, but it wouldn't turn. He rattled the brass handle in frustration until the heavy oak door swung open. I stood in the grand foyer, holding my teacup with cool, unshakable detachment. "Maria!" Marcus gasped in desperate panic. "Why are the locks changed? Someone committed fraud on your credit card and got us thrown off the cruise." My mother, Eleanor, stepped forward, her face twisted with bitter rage. "Maria, how could you lock us out? We were humiliated. You need to transfer money to Marcus's account right now to pay for our lost vacation." I set my porcelain cup down on the marble console table. "Nobody committed fraud except you, Marcus," I said clearly. "You stole my corporate black card from my safe while I was being loaded into an ambulance. You took $31,000 from my company to take my toxic family on a cruise while I lay alone in a recovery room." Arthur stammered, sweating profusely under his shirt. "It was just a family celebration. We were going to pay you back." "You don't have $31,000, Arthur," I replied ice cold. "And you never intended to pay back a single cent." Claire Montgomery stepped forward and served Marcus with formal divorce papers, invoking our prenuptial agreement's fraud clause to permanently waive all rights to spousal support, equitable distribution, or asset claims. Immediately after, the Boston police officers stepped onto the porch and placed Marcus under arrest for felony identity theft, grand credit card fraud, and corporate conversion, snapping heavy steel handcuffs around his wrists. Vanessa shrieked in horror, while my mother collapsed against the stone porch wall, weeping hysterically and calling me a heartless monster as Marcus was led down the driveway toward a police cruiser. I looked at my family, the people who had spent my entire life viewing me as an economic resource to be plundered. "You destroyed yourselves the moment you decided my life was worth less than a cruise ticket," I stated with absolute clarity. "Get off my property before you're arrested for criminal trespassing." Security guards escorted my sobbing parents and sister off the estate and locked the iron gates behind them forever. The fallout was swift and absolute. Marcus pled guilty to grand corporate fraud, receiving 2 years in a state correctional facility and a full restitution order. Our divorce was finalized 6 months later with 0 alimony and 0 business equity granted to him. Stripped of my financial backing, my parents were forced to sell their suburban home at a loss to cover outstanding debts, moving into a cramped 2-bedroom rental outside the city. Vanessa sold her designer clothes to pay off her credit card balances, taking an entry-level retail job at a shopping mall. Meanwhile, Vanguard Environmental Solutions expanded its operations, securing major municipal contracts across the East Coast. I established the Maria Sharp Patient Defense Initiative, a specialized nonprofit foundation providing legal representation and financial defense for hospitalized individuals targeted by predatory relatives during medical crises. 2 years later, standing on the upper terrace of my Back Bay townhouse, watching the sun set over the Charles River, Claire handed me a glass of sparkling water with a warm smile, confirming that all final legal releases were signed. I was officially entirely free. I had proven that true strength isn't found in suffering toxic exploitation in silence, but in having the unyielding courage to enforce your rights, protect your dignity, and cut away the parasites forever. Educational lesson: corporate card conversion and felony fraud. Using a business or corporate credit card without explicit authorization constitutes felony identity theft and commercial conversion under state and federal law, regardless of marital status. Marriage does not confer automatic legal authority to access or spend from a spouse's separate corporate account. Emergency fraud chargebacks and medical proof. Bank account owners who discover unauthorized corporate expenditures while medically incapacitated can submit official hospital admission records and surgical logs to financial institutions. Under federal banking regulations, banks execute immediate commercial chargebacks, clawing back merchant payments and initiating criminal fraud proceedings. Prenuptial fault-based disqualification. Ironclad premarital agreements containing financial fraud and fault clauses protect separate real estate and corporate equity. Establishing felony theft during divorce proceedings effectively voids spousal maintenance claims and bars the fraudulent party from receiving equitable distribution. Personal advice: if you experience a sudden medical emergency and discover that family members or a spouse have exploited your vulnerability to plunder your financial assets, do not let emotional hesitation prevent you from taking action. Secure your legal and corporate holdings immediately, maintain strict premarital asset separation, and report unauthorized access to banking authorities without delay. Relatives who prioritize luxury purchases over your health and safety do not deserve your loyalty. Enforcing strict legal boundaries is an essential act of self-preservation, financial integrity, and personal dignity.